Welcome to the hormonal economy. The soft men believe that their financial decisions are purely rational, driven by logic and data. They are dead wrong. Every trade you make, every business you start, and every negotiation you enter is filtered through a chemical cocktail in your bloodstream. At the center of this cocktail is testosterone, the hormone of competition, status, and risk appetite. By 2027, the biological gap between the elite and the masses has widened into a canyon. While the average laborer is being chemically castrated by microplastics, sedentary lifestyles, and a diet of industrial slop, the architect treats his endocrine system as his primary capital reserve. You must understand the winner effect. This is a biological feedback loop documented in both animals and high-stakes traders. When you win a battle, whether it's closing a deal or hitting a target, your brain releases a surge of testosterone. This surge increases your confidence, sharpens your focus, and actually changes your brain structure to make you more likely to win the next encounter. The elite understand this. They manufacture wins to keep their testosterone levels elevated. They operate in a state of preemptive dominance. The soft man, however, is stuck in a loser loop. Constant stress, fear of the news, and lack of physical agency keep his cortisol levels high and his testosterone low. High cortisol is the hormone of submission. It makes you risk-averse, prone to panic selling, and biologically programmed to seek safety in a herd. In the market of 2027, if your cortisol is higher than your testosterone, you aren't an investor. You're a victim waiting to happen. Furthermore, we must address the synthetic castration of the modern workforce. The system wants you low T. Why? Because a man with high testosterone is difficult to govern. He is aggressive in his demands, he is independent in his thinking, and he has the biological gall to walk away from a bad deal. A low T man is compliant. He accepts the inflation, he accepts the stagnant wage, and he accepts the digital shackle because his biology has lost the will to fight for resources. By 2027, the white market is designed for the compliant. The gray zones are fueled by the high T outliers. The architect realizes that financial freedom starts in the gonads. If you don't have the chemical drive to conquer your environment, all the strategy in the world won't save you. You will hesitate at the exact moment you should strike, and you will hold at the exact moment you should exit. The architect's first investment is in his biological sovereignty. You don't optimize your portfolio until you optimize your blood work. You cut the endocrine disruptors. You master the cold plunge and heavy lift protocols to trigger natural surges. And you monitor your biometric levels with the same intensity that you monitor the Bitcoin price. You understand that your conviction in a trade is not a moral virtue, it's a physical state. When your levels are optimal, your time horizon expands. You can sit through a market dip because your nervous system isn't screaming danger. You have the biological buffer to play the long game. The soft man is a slave to his glucose spikes and cortisol crashes. He is volatile because his body is a mess. Part 1 is the wake-up call. Your bank account is a mirror of your hormonal health. If you want to own the market, you must first own your own chemistry. The architect looks at the global economy and doesn't just see a flow of money. He sees a massive, coordinated stress harvest. You must understand that cortisol, the primary stress hormone, is the biological antithesis of capital accumulation. Evolution designed cortisol for short-term bursts, escaping a predator or fighting off an attacker. It was meant to last for minutes, but in the engineered society of 2027, the soft man is living in a state of chronic cortisol elevation. He is being microdosed with terror every time he checks his phone, every time he sees a headline about a new pandemic, a nuclear threat, or an economic collapse. This isn't accidental. It is a tactical deployment of biological suppression. When your cortisol is chronically high, your body enters survival mode. It shuts down long-term functions like your immune system, your reproductive drive, and most importantly, your strategic cognition. When you are flooded with cortisol, your time preference shifts from the decade to the second. You lose the ability to think about 2030 because your biology is convinced you won't survive until Tuesday. This is the biological death trap. The elite use the news cycle to keep you in a state of hypervigilance. In this state, you are incapable of building a fortress. You are reactive, not proactive. You make fear-based decisions. You sell your appreciating assets at the first sign of red. You buy insurance you don't need, and you seek the safety of the herd. The soft man is a biological wreck, vibrating with anxiety, which makes him the perfect consumer. He buys comfort food, passive entertainment, and anti-anxiety meds just to numb the chemical noise in his head. He is spending his capital to fix a biological problem that was intentionally created by the people who sold him the cure. Furthermore, we must address the debt-cortisol feedback loop. Debt is not just a financial contract, it is a biological shackle. When you owe money to a bank, you are living with a threat that never sleeps. Every month, the payment looms. This creates a constant low-level stress response that drains your biological capital. The architect realizes that the true cost of a loan isn't the 7% interest rate. It's the 24/7 cortisol drip that prevents him from being creative, aggressive, and sovereign. The elite borrow money for free because they are the system, but they sell you debt to ensure you remain in a state of biological submission. A man with a mortgage and 3 credit card balances is a man whose endocrine system is owned by the creditors. He cannot pivot, he cannot risk, and he cannot strike because his body is literally too tired to fight. He is a biological serf, harvesting his own energy to pay a debt that was designed to be unpayable. The architect's counter strategy is endocrine defiance. You must realize that the news is a chemical attack on your brain. You don't stay informed, you stay targeted. To survive 2027, you must implement a low cortisol protocol. This means a total blackout of the fear industrial complex. You stop consuming breaking news. You stop engaging in outage culture. You treat your attention as a sacred border that no panic bot is allowed to cross. You understand that focus is a hormonal state. When you are calm, your brain can see the patterns that the panicked masses miss. You can see the alpha in the market because you aren't blinded by the fog of war. The elite stay calm because they know the outcome. The architect stays calm because he has decoupled his nervous system from the narrative. By 2027, calmness is the ultimate luxury good. The masses are being driven into a collective frenzy, a hormonal riot that destroys their health and their wealth simultaneously. The architect uses tactical stoicism, not as a philosophy, but as a biological shield. You use physical training, breathwork, and information fasting to force your cortisol back down to baseline. You understand that a clear head is the most valuable piece of equipment in your sovereign stack. When the market crashes and the world is screaming, the man with the lowest cortisol is the one who will walk away with all the chips. He is the only one who can actually see the board. The final insult of the stress harvest is the inflammation of equity. High cortisol leads to systemic inflammation, which leads to brain fog. In 2027, cognitive clarity is the only thing that separates the orchestrator from the automated laborer. If your brain is inflamed by stress, you cannot manage the AI agents, you cannot see the jurisdictional gaps, and you cannot execute the sovereign exit. You are effectively lobotomized by your own biology. The elite want you inflamed, tired, and scared because an inflamed man is a soft man. He is easy to lead, easy to tax, and easy to replace. Part 2 is the realization. The war for your wealth is being fought inside your adrenal glands. If you don't take control of the chemical gate, the system will drain you dry before you ever reach the sovereign exit. Welcome to the era of digital neural capture. By 2027, the global economy has transitioned into a dopamine casino. The soft men are currently being farmed for their attention like livestock. Every app, every notification, and every short-form video is a precision-engineered dopamine hit designed to shatter your attention span into 15-second fragments. The elite understand that a man who cannot focus for more than a minute is a man who can never build a sovereign asset. He is a consumer of feedback loops rather than a creator of systems. The architect realizes that dopamine is the currency of motivation, and if you spend it all on cheap digital garbage, you will have zero neurochemical capital left to build your empire. You must understand the dopamine baseline. Your brain has a fixed amount of motivational energy. When you flood your system with cheap dopamine, scrolling through feeds, watching adult content, or gambling on meme coins, you aren't just having fun. You are depleting your baseline. You are raising the threshold of what it takes to make you feel motivated. This is why the soft man finds it impossible to sit down and read a 50-page legal contract or study a complex DeFi protocol. His brain is so overstimulated by the high-velocity noise that real work feels physically painful. He is suffering from reward system desensitization. He has the hormonal profile of a winner, testosterone maybe, but the neurological wiring of a crack addict. The architect's countermove is the dopamine moat. You must intentionally lower your reward threshold through sensory deprivation and boredom protocols. The elite don't spend 8 hours a day on TikTok. They spend their time in deep work environments, in high-level negotiations, or in silence. They protect their dopamine receptors with the same ferocity that they protect their private keys. When you starve your brain of cheap stimulation, hard things become exciting. Suddenly, analyzing a balance sheet or learning a new coding language becomes the dopamine spike because it's the only meaningful activity available. This is how you achieve asymmetric focus. While the world is distracted by the next shiny thing, you are focused on the one thing that will buy your freedom. You have built a moat that the soft men literally cannot cross because their brains are too broken to sustain the effort. Furthermore, we must address the dopamine debt connection. Debt is a dopamine loan. When you buy a luxury car on credit, you are getting the dopamine hit of ownership today with without doing the work required to earn it. You are front-loading the reward. This creates a psychological state of borrowed status. Because your brain thinks you've already won, you have the car. It stops producing the drive to actually win. The architect practices delayed gratification, not because it's a moral virtue, but because it's a performance enhancer. By delaying the reward, you keep your dopamine pressure high. You keep that hunger in your gut that drives you to work 14-hour days to acquire the asset. You want the reward to be the result of the victory, not the trigger for it. In 2027, the real money is made by the delayed men, the ones who can sit in a room alone and work on a project for 6 months without a single like, comment, or paycheck, fueled only by their internal vision. This is the sovereign feedback loop. You move from external validation, the crowd, to internal validation, the mission. The elite have already decoupled their dopamine from the public ledger. They don't care what the soft men think of them. They care about the truth of their P and L statement. To reach this level, you must undergo a digital detox that is as brutal as a drug withdrawal. You kill the notifications. You delete the entertainment apps. You move your life into the gray zone of physical reality and deep stack digital construction. The final component of the dopamine architecture is flow state monetization. When your testosterone is high, your cortisol is low, and your dopamine is regulated, you enter the flow state. This is the God mode of human performance. In this state, your brain processes information 500% faster, your creativity skyrockets, and your sense of self vanishes into the work. The soft men only experience flow by accident. The architect schedules it. You use your optimized biology to enter the deep work chamber and produce in 4 hours what a normal person produces in 2 weeks. This is how you outcompete the synthetic labor market. You aren't just working, you are operating at a higher frequency. You are a neural elite. The year 2027 is a great filtering of focus. The system is trying to ADHDify the entire population to make them easier to manipulate and more dependent on the algorithm. But the architect sees the trap. He treats his dopamine as his most precious natural resource. He mines it, he refines it, and he spends it only on the sovereign exit. The soft men are being lobotomized by their screens. The architect is using his screen as a control panel for his global empire. The choice is yours. Are you a user of the dopamine machine, or are you the engineer who built it? The light is green. The grid is open. The biological sovereign has already won. End of protocol.